Welcome back to the Pop Cult Online Power Hour, the video podcast dedicated to the 10-year-old in all of us. And I'm your host, Rick Gordon. The beginning is the end, and the end is the beginning. What am I talking about? You'll find out. Listen in. Join us after these brief messages.
The world's favorite comic book hero, followed by 84 million readers a year. Now, he comes alive. For the first time on the screen, you'll see it all. The spectacular adventures of the amazing Spider-Man.
He can do the things a spider does, climb walls and spin webs, and he's very, very strong.
You've heard about him. You've read about him. Now, you'll see him in action.
Kill him.
No challenge is too great. No enemy is too strong. The most popular, most daring, most exciting superhero in the entire world. At last, he comes alive for his most incredible adventure. Now, Spider-Man takes on a madman who's turning the streets into a siege of terror. More and more people are being mysteriously hypnotized into threatening the entire city and destroying themselves. Look up high as one man does the impossible. He uses all his fantastic spider powers to battle the most evil forces ever imagined. Astounding live-action excitement. The super adventure of everybody's favorite superhero. Spider-Man. Now, he lives.
It is a world transformed, where things are not what they seem. It is the world of the Transformers.
The Transformers, more than meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. The Transformers, robots in disguise. The Transformers, more than meets the eye.
The Transformers from Marvel Comics.
Would that be my spider sense returning? What's that? He's back. Way to go. Don't let those overgrown tin men keep you down. What? Just too many of the big guys for you, buddy. What? Hold on tight.
Can Spidey handle the Sentinel's blast?
Whoa.
Grab a copy of this month's Spider-Man. Marvel Comics, it's mayhem for your mind.
Hey, there he is.
Iron Rick Gordon.
How are you?
I'll tilt my camera up so you can get the full impact of the...
Yeah. I like the hat. I like it a lot.
Raiders of the Lost Universe tonight, I think. You said
So, you're going to have to spend the next hour talking me off the ledge.
I'm curious, like, you don't normally get a lot of the latest comic news, so why don't you set this up by saying where you heard about it and what you heard.
Okay. Well,
and let's start out with what we're talking about.
Okay. What we're talking about is the apparent end of the Marvel Universe as we know it. Now, if you're just joining us, Bob and I have been doing the comic thing since the early 70s. Roughly 12 years after the start of the Marvel Universe. So, it's something that's near and dear to both of us. But, that being said, we've both been through our fair share of scams, boondoggles, false crises, you name it. So, my gut tells me this is just another marketing ploy, but it's still as a longtime collector, it irritates the shit out of me that they have to resort to something like this, unless there's a legitimate excuse. So, basically, 2 days ago, there was a press conference, or whatever you want to call it, and they...
On the day of the State of the Union address, for those people who don't give a rat's ass about politics and would rather listen to Marvel talk about what's coming up, and I think a lot more people are interested.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
Marvel Universe.
So, 2 days ago, they had a little press conference, and basically what they're going to be doing is destroying all the Marvel universes and combining them into one massive universe at the end of this huge event of Secret Wars. Yet another iteration of Secret Wars. I went through the first two and was not impressed, so I doubt this will impress me.
The first one was cool, I thought. I mean, it was really the first big event as an event, right? I mean, you had like the Avengers Defenders War, which we've talked about before, and you had other kind of crossovers, but it was the first, big thing, because you were reading the comics back when the first original Secret Wars came out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you remember, it's like...
It's all encompassing.
All the guys disappeared, and then they reappeared, and a whole bunch of stuff was different about them. Spider-Man had a black costume, and all other kinds of stuff had gone on, but you didn't know why. They had just gone, and then you had to read the Secret Wars series for 12 issues in the blanks about all the crazy stuff that went on. And the other piece about that was that was back before there was an internet, and like them telling you about it, months and months before it ever happened, and it wasn't like this big anticipation kind of thing, where I get the feeling lately that they're so obsessed with catching the news bite and getting people talking about stuff in advance that by the time the actual comic book comes out with the story in it, everyone's pretty much sick of it and they're done. It's just like, well, we've been talking about it for the last 6 months. It's like, the actual comic book story is sort of an afterthought at this point. Everyone they've read 50 interviews by that point, and they've read all these articles, and they kind of have rehashed, and everybody, because not everybody gets on the internet, but the people who are on the internet and in the shops, they've already been talking the storyline to death for months before and it seems to me like it kind of robs the story of its impact and makes it kind of anticlimactic in a way.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's been going on for so long that I think some of the newer readers don't know any other way.
Yeah.
I think they would be really shocked if, it had rolled out the way that it had for us. And the first Secret Wars was just so fresh and so innovative and unfortunately so successful that they just, it was a formula that worked and they just ran it into the ground. So the thing that got me was about this press conference is you have Alexis Alonso up there saying, if we wanted to bring back Gwen Stacy, this would be the place to do it. And that just really...
Well, the Gwen Stacy, I guarantee you that the Gwen Stacy that's coming back in the combined universe is going to be Spider-Gwen.
Yeah, that wouldn't be too bad.
Because this Spider-Gwen character, like, for people, they're doing a crossover right now in Spider-Man called the Edge of Spider-Verse, which is actually a very cool crossover. I was not a big fan of Moreland when he originally came out, and they kind of changed all this spider avatar stuff, and they kind of tried to, and this is also why you say, okay, they're changing the Marvel Universe. They change the Marvel Universe all the time. I mean, they, over the past 40 years, I mean, they're continually changing the status quo in the Marvel Universe. In that original series, you remember, J. Michael Straczynski, he had Gwen Stacy had gotten pregnant by Norman Osborn and had 2 kids that they accelerated grow in some clone chamber or something crazy. And they made it so, Spider-Man didn't really get his powers from the radioactive spider. We all knew it was really from, some spider avatar totem and all kinds of crazy stuff. And even before that, we had the Clone Wars where, the Spider-Man you've been reading about for the past X years was really the clone that the Jackal created, and it was the real Peter Parker that got killed. And, they're always shaking things up with some kind of zany thing. And then even, I'm just staying in Spider-Man, these things have happened all around.
Oh, yeah.
And then after that, they retconned out Peter and Mary Jane's marriage when he kind of tried to save first off, he reveals his identity to the world in Civil War.
Yep.
Needless. And then they say, we got to undo that. So then they do this. Then Aunt May gets shot as a result of that. And then to save Aunt May's life, he sells his happiness to Mephisto, and Mephisto brings Aunt May back, but makes it so that Peter and Mary Jane were never married, never fell in love, any of this kind of stuff. So that was all wiped out. All these things, and then, I mean, it doesn't mean that they didn't tell really good Spider-Man stories after that, right? Mm-hmm. It's just that, they do these things to be a jumping board to go in another direction. And then things settle down. They put some new, good, popular creators on it. And a lot of times these come out with good stories. So, I digress.
That's a perfectly logical explanation. And, like you said, they do it periodically. They usually do it to, one of their bigger characters. I mean, we've seen them do this to the Fantastic Four time and time again. Right. X-Men, you name it. But this is a little different. This feels a little more wholesale.
Well, you're right, because usually they do it piecemeal. It's like, we're going to do this character or that character. Sometimes they just do it without even... it's like, we're going to restart Nova, and now it's some new dude as Nova, and we're going to restart the all-new Captain America, and Sam, we made Steve Rogers, the super soldier serum went away, and he's 80 years old, and he's all decrepit, and now Sam Wilson is Captain America. And it's like, okay, fine. Wolverine is dead, which... that won't last as long as that at the end of this wars, Wolverine's going to be back. So, he'll have been dead 6 months, maybe. So they're, in some form or another, he'll be back. But, they do these things all the time. And the story, what they've done is, they've got this established, and they've had a multiverse at Marvel for a while, but they just had, they have all these different Earths, and they've really been getting hardcore with it lately in Avengers and New Avengers, which is really the event that's leading up to Secret Wars. So, really the event that's happening, if you really, people should be reading Avengers and New Avengers, because what's been happening for about the last year is Jonathan Hickman has been weaving this story where something happens, and they have these things called incursions, where 2 Earths from different dimensions are going to come together and collide, and if they actually collide, then they'll both get destroyed and bad things will happen. Or the people on one of the Earths can destroy the other Earth so that they don't merge together. And then it's okay, but it means that the people on the one Earth actually have to destroy the other Earth, which is not necessarily a very wholesome thing, right? So the Illuminati, which is a lot of the bigwigs in the Marvel Universe, and there's also the Cabal, which are some of the badder ones. There's been these things going on, and they've been teasing this time runs out for the last long time, where that's leading up to Secret Wars, and they've had all these different universes in the Marvel multiverse, and our Earth is Earth 616. Mm-hmm. That came from a story at some point where I forget who the writer was, but they referred to our reality as 616, and that kind of stuck. But, they'll be, there's Earth, 62,321, and, they got some crazy stuff going on. So all, different Earths are getting destroyed, different ones are not getting destroyed, but there's all this multiversal stuff going on in Avengers. Now, at the same time, they took Morlun from the Spider-Man stories, and they made him, which might have been established earlier, might not have been, I don't remember, but they made him where he's part of this whole family of these uber beings that live in this multiversal nexus, and they get by killing and eating the life force of characters that have this spider totem life force. So they just kind of tool around the different thousands and millions of different dimensions, finding Spider-Man and Spider-Women, and they kill them and suck all their life juices out, right? So this Spider-Verse crossover is basically every version of Spider-Man you have ever seen is a Spider-Man from one of those universes. So you got Peter Porker, the spectacular Spider-Ham, came from the Animal universe, and they have
the Japanese TV Spider-Man.
The Japanese TV Spider-Man. They've got a couple of different ones. They've got a manga one, and they got one with a giant robot, and they've got the Spider-Man Noir Spider-Man. They have the Spider-Man from the 1967 cartoon series.
Oh, wow.
The animated one. They got the one from the 90s cartoon. They've got all... And it's funny because, you're going along and you see the one from the 60s cartoon, and they're in his universe, and they're like, man, what building in Manhattan is only 6 windows wide, And it's like, I go 2 blocks, look the same as the ones 2 blocks back. And, they're just making all these kind of references to how the animation was in that series. And, just like in the series, he's got the webs on his mask, but he doesn't have any webs on the rest of his costume because they
cool.
too lazy to draw him in the animation. So, they got that one. They got the Spider-Man from maybe the 2000 series, where he's always having these little asides and talking to the camera because that's what he did in the cartoon. And so in Edge of Spider-Verse number 2, they introduced Spider-Gwen, where Gwen got the spider powers. Mm-hmm. And she's wearing this kind of white costume with a hoodie, and man, for some reason, she just caught the collective consciousness of the internet, and it just went crazy. People love Spider-Gwen. That issue is selling for $30 already and more. It just went nuts because it was issue 2 of Edge of Spider-Verse. It wasn't, they didn't like many things. They didn't make a big first appearance and, buy 1 million copies of this. Here's 10 variants and all this kind of stuff. So it was actually fairly rare as those things go. I mean, it didn't have, the first print didn't have, probably but 30 or 40,000 copies or something compared to, 80 or 90,000 of Amazing. Mm-hmm. So, all these people, I want to get on board with that. And it's, okay, So she's very popular. She's a very popular character. She's getting her own series, Spider-Gwen, right? So
she'll survive the cut.
I would be willing to bet that at the end of Secret Wars, the Gwen Stacy that comes back is some form of Spider-Gwen.
Do you
But
think
they
this is
teased that image I sent you with Peter and Mary Jane married again, right? With the little redheaded girl, right?
Yeah.
Hey, if that comes out of it, I would be happy.
So, do you think this is a good opportunity for Marvel to, or Disney, whoever's behind this, to basically clean house, to get everything in order? Because I really feel like there's an ulterior motive behind all of this that we're just not seeing yet.
Oh, I think that there's an ulterior motive that's very clear. One, sell a buttload of comics, but more importantly, I will bet you that the universe that comes out of this is going to look a lot more like Marvel's cinematic universe than it does today. They're going to, with maybe the possible exception of, I think what they're going to do is they're going to take the versions of the different characters and make them as the most popular ones will be the ones that carry on. What I'm not sure about is they've been saying that there's only going to be one universe that comes out the other side. So what Secret Wars is supposed to be is they're supposed to kind of mash up all these different worlds into this big battle world, and then some bunch of crazy stuff's supposed to happen, and out the other end, they're a little cryptic about it, but there's supposed to be one main continuity. But I don't know, because they're talking about getting rid of the Ultimate Universe, which, the Ultimate Universe had its day. Really, the only character in the Ultimate Universe that kind of stuck was Miles Morales. Right. So, they can have Miles Morales as the young version, and if they make Spider-Man 32, 33 or whatever he kind of maybe should be, and he's married and has kids, then they have the 19 or 20-year-old Miles Morales, and then they can kind of have both, right? But, will they really not tell other universe type of stories? I think they'll keep on doing that. I think they'll keep on having, like now when they put out some noir books where they have like that. Have you seen those? The noir universe? They're kind of set in the 30s, and it's all kind of dark, and everyone's got kind of black leather kind of outfits and stuff, sort of like X-Men movie. They'll keep that stuff, I think.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why. Do you think that this is like a reaction to the New 52?
I don't think it's as much a reaction to the New 52 as I think that they wanted to do something for a long time. But I have a theory on this, that the only time DC won the sales in the last several years. So they won the sales for a couple of months when they rebooted the New 52, right? And then they won the sales both Septembers when they had those events where they had like the 3D lenticular type of covers. And they're like, ooh, here, look at all these, flashy covers. So Marvel has known for a while that DC is doing convergence, and they're kind of combining, where they're maybe combining their multiverse or growing their, I don't know which direction they're going, but they're doing, convergence would imply a contraction, but I don't know. But they're doing some big event, and the solicits that just came out for DC, for the February solicits for book shipping in April, all the DC books are suspended for 2 months, and they're just having all these convergence. So convergence is shipping weekly for those 2 months. So for April, they solicited, you got convergence 1 through 4, and then you've got a buttload of books, like 40 or 50 of them, that are all Convergence, Teen Titans, and Convergence, and each one is not they're not New 52 books necessarily, but you got like the Teen Titans one has got the new Teen Titans in it. You look at the cover and it's got Jericho and Starfire and Nightwing and all those guys, and it's written by Marv Wolfman.
Wow.
And then they've got some detective is by it's got Dennis Cowan art, and Swamp Thing one is written by Len Wein with Kelly Jones art.
Really?
Closest thing that they can get to Mike Ploog, I think.
Right.
And they've got like the old Supergirl in one of them with the headband.
No
Remember
way.
that version with the curly perm hair and the headband from the 80s. Look at the solicits on the Comic Spectrum site. On my, I've got the link, the little previews catalog cover, and that'll bring you to a page with links to all the solicits. And you just look at the DC solicits, and you can see all the different books. So what they're doing is for those 2 months, they're going to do like these 42-issue series with just all different, other versions of the characters, kind of from different periods in the history. And I think they're trying to do the ones that people liked, or were fairly popular. Now, that said, okay, Marvel knew that they were going to do something like that. Mm-hmm. If Marvel just published their normal stuff for those months, that is a recipe for just letting DC have top sales for a couple of months. Marvel's not stupid. I mean, you think they're not sitting around saying, what are we going to do? And I'm not saying it's only a yeah, but it's like it's business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, business. Marvel is in business to sell more comics than DC sells, and they've been doing it very well for the last 10 years, except for, a number of months you can probably count on the fingers of one hand, out of a really long time. So if they just sit back and let DC do whatever DC's going to do, fans will be like, oh, I remember that. I'm going to buy that. And, so Marvel needs to do some stuff to say, hey, here's something to buy from Marvel, for these months. Now they're off by a month. So DC might actually win the April, because Secret Wars is going to hit in May. Secret Wars is not in the April solicits. What you have in the April solicits is the last issue of Avengers, the last issue of New Avengers, the last issue of Fantastic Four. They're ending a whole bunch of titles, and something different will come out the other side. But much like when DC did the New 52, if you were reading it from before the New 52 and after the New 52, DC's top-selling franchises at that time and are to this day, Batman, number one, right? Batman has always been their number one, not always, but for a really long time, right? I think there was a point when Superman was probably bigger, but, I mean, for a really long time, Batman has been reigning king at DC. And, when you look at Diamond put out the top 100 sales. Did I mention this last time? Yeah. They put out you had to go, the number one DC title was Batman. It was a Batman issue. You had to go down to like slot 33 or 34 on the top 100 books of 2014 before there was a non-Batman book from DC. So when they did New 52, Batman was largely unchanged. I mean, they changed some little things. I mean, they switched it up a little bit. They kind of compressed his whole history into 5 years. did some funny stuff with Robin and, Red Hood. But, I mean, that's all really window dressing kind of stuff. I mean, if you picked up and read a Batman book, there was pretty much no Batman story that you couldn't have told. Pretty much, Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo came on the book. They could have told that exact same story with minor tweaks for, just window dressing kind of things without there ever having been a New 52. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with Green Lantern, which was their number 2 franchise at that point in time. That has lost a lot of the luster since Jeff Johns left the title. Mm-hmm. But again, if you looked at the Green Lantern franchise, they did some things to shake it up. Sinestro was back being Green Lantern for a while, but they still had Hal Jordan running around. You still had Kyle Rayner and John Stewart and all the Lantern Corps and all this kind of stuff. Pretty much nothing in the Green Lantern books that you could not have done without having done the New 52.
Okay.
Now, Superman, they changed up a bit. They really fiddled with Superman quite a lot more. And, now he's romantically entangled with Wonder Woman. They kind of got rid of the Superman and Lois marriage as part of that. They got rid of Lois Lane in general. Like, they brought her back at some point with some kind of superpowers or something, but I had stopped reading Superman by that point, so I'm far less up on what went on with Superman. But they messed around with him. They changed Flash quite a bit. Wally West, you still don't really see Wally West in the DC universe. Maybe you somewhere, but I'm not reading a lot of that stuff. So, Barry Allen was back being Flash. And, he had been gone for a long time in the core universe. They completely changed the Titans around. But a lot of and then Wonder Woman, they changed quite a lot also. Mm-hmm. But, basically the characters that were the top sellers, they pretty much left them alone. And then they continued to sell. And then they tried a whole bunch of new things with the characters that weren't selling that good. And some of it stuck, but a lot of it didn't. And now it's 2.5 years later, and, I think they're saying, okay, now we're going to try something different. And I don't know, are they going to go back to the pre-New 52?
That's interesting. It's almost like they're using the event as an umbrella to really experiment with stuff where maybe they just didn't feel comfortable before.
Right.
And maybe, Marvel might do the same thing. Like you said, they probably won't really change the core characters. They're not going to... They wouldn't do something crazy like change Thor into a woman or kill off Wolverine.
Which happens anyway, right? It's like I've kind of gotten over getting upset about these things because they... life's too short. They change these characters all the time anyway, but now they'll just change a whole bunch of stuff at one time. Mm-hmm. Whatever comes out the other side, they're going to get a whole bunch of good creators. Marvel does a really good job of getting good creators on board to tell stories. So I'm sure they're going to tell some really entertaining stories moving forward from that event. And DC, I'm a little more reserved on that. What's interesting about the DC one, another thing that this timing is, DC is moving its offices from New York to Burbank, right? You knew that.
Right.
So this is the time frame that they're moving their offices. So by getting all these classic creators, I think they probably got these 2-issue story arcs kind of in the bag from these creators.
Right.
And now they can go on about their business and move their offices for a couple of months.
That's very smart, yeah.
And they've got these books that can just come out, and they don't have to worry about.
Right.
And then when they get to the new offices, and then boom, they hit the ground running with whatever's going to come out of the other side of Convergence. It's going to be coming out of, and then the other part is a lot of the the staffers, they're going to be getting new staffers because a lot of the staffers didn't want to uproot their families and move to California.
Yeah.
So some of those people quit. They took whatever kind of severance package they were offered. So DC goes on hold for a couple of months. They put out some cool 2-issue series with a lot of classic takes on characters. They can kind of get a feel for what people like, and then something else is going to come out the other side. Now, what is that going to be? I don't know. Same thing with Marvel. Marvel, hey, Spider-Man is their number one seller.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man is like, for a long time also. It kind of slipped for a while at various points, but, Spider-Man's Marvel's Batman.
Right.
It's like DC, Batman, and all the Batman titles, top of the heap. Marvel, Spider-Man, and Spider-Man titles, top of the heap. But, even though Spider-Man was top of the heap, didn't prevent Marvel from killing Spider-Man for 2 years and sticking Doc Ock into his head, right?
True.
And they told like 2 years or so of stories with Doc Ock in place of Spider-Man, and we weathered that. So how much crazier can you get than that? And it's like you said. Thor is, Thor is still Thor. He just doesn't have Mjolnir, right?
Right.
This female Thor, whoever she is, Thor became unworthy to wield the hammer, so she was worthy, so she has that, and she has the power of Thor also, instead of, and Thor's running around with an axe or mace or something or another. But he's still in the Avengers titles, and, he's around.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not in that Thor book. So, again, that's a big shakeup. That new Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, that's been doing really good for Marvel.
Huh?
They've been getting
a new Ms. Marvel.
Well, she's really. Remember how I said Inhumans are the new mutants last week?
Right.
Well, Kamala Khan, she's Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
She's a teenager, female, and she had her Kree gene activated by that Terrigen mist. And she was just a superhero groupie, and she loved Carol Danvers, so she, Carol Danvers had become Captain Marvel, so she made herself a costume.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
She's Ms. Marvel, and she's got some kind of weird, shape-changing powers, but and Lockjaw hangs around with her now, because since she's an Inhuman, Medusa told Lockjaw to kind of keep an eye on her and help her out. And it's a fun book. It's a really well done book. That's going to come out the other side. That's doing too well for Marvel for them to mess with that. Mm-hmm. I would be willing to guess that it's the things that aren't selling as well. They'll change things up. They'll use it as an opportunity to bring some Wolverine back. Now, in their announcement, they were showing. Remember the Old Man Logan series?
Yes.
So they had something with Old Man Logan, and maybe that's something in Battle World, but maybe Old Man Logan ends up in the continuity moving forward to fill the Logan thing, because crusty old Logan guy. Stranger things have happened, and that's a popular version of the character, so then you can bring him back, but maybe not bring back the same one who died, and I'm willing to bet that Steve Rogers is going to be back, not being 80 years old anymore. And, Spider-Man will still be Spider-Man, but if they kind of restore the wedding to Mary Jane and they give them that red-haired daughter that's Mayday Parker, maybe, that would be fun. There's a lot of things that could come out of this. And it's not, I think that they get publicity by saying, "Oh, well, we're killing the Marvel Universe."
Oh,
and,
yeah.
"Oh, Stan Lee, what do you think about them killing the Marvel Universe?"
That was the other thing that got me. Yeah, just
Well,
the
Stan never
creators'
says it.
reactions.
He knows what side his bread is buttered on, and so what was Stan's reaction? He's like, "Well, I like the way I did it, but their whole job is to tell entertaining stories, so I'm sure they're going to tell a good doozy." And it's like, he's not going to read this stuff. What does he care as long as the checks keep clear,
One thing I have noticed about the Marvel Universe, and when I'm talking about the Marvel Universe, I'm talking about the other side, the non-comic version. There's this other Marvel Universe that has been homogenized so that the characters are very easily recognizable in no matter what media they're in. So your Iron Man is the same Iron Man in the movie as he is in the animated series, as he is in the video games. And I do a lot of gaming, and especially on the iPhone and iOS and things like that. And there's this little thread of continuity that's running through this whole universe that's really kind of neat. And so whenever you see a group of superheroes, the one thing I've always noticed, it's always heroes that have had movies. There's no strangers out there. When you look at merchandising for kids, the toys, the clothing, it's always a core of characters that have already been established in the cinematic world. And I think what they're doing is they're taking the comic universe, putting it through a meat grinder, and making it more and more like the other universe that's out there. And they can add to it easily, and without worrying about what happened before, the history. You don't have to worry about retconning. You can just, you want to, pull Paladin out of mothballs and make him a character. Boom, there you go. Boom, you don't have to worry about Baxter or anything. Just do it. It's a brave new world. It should be interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of strange because you see the characters that people have never heard of before suddenly become just mega popular. It's like a year ago, Guardians of the Galaxy, the version that was in the movie, it's like nobody knew who these characters are, and you're like, oh, big tree and a raccoon, and then they had the Ooga Chaka Chaka, and everyone, oh, that looks stupid, all the doomsayers, that looks like they're making it a joke, that's terrible. Then the movie was an immense hit, and people were buying, they're craving little dancing baby Groot toys, and where's the money? The money is not from buying comic books. The money is from selling a zillion frickin' Funko Pop Groot and Rocket Raccoon figurines.
Yep.
And little dancing baby Groots and backpacks with the Guardians of the Galaxy on them.
Or $2.99 for a video game for your phone, or any number of things.
That's where the money is. Show me the money. The money is in that stuff. And the comics are a tremendous ground for creating the intellectual property, but it's not the greatest place to be the ultimate monetization of that intellectual property.
Right.
The monetization happens once these characters enter into the zeitgeist of the general populace, and that does not happen until they've been in a popular movie or a popular TV show. Right? Because then you get so many more people that see it that are never going to go pick up a comic book. Now, another interesting piece, we talked about Star Wars a little bit last time.
Right.
Even more since last week that's fascinating about the Star Wars stuff. I was in talking to my guy at the comic shop this past weekend. So, Star Wars came out a week ago Wednesday. some ungodly amount of variant covers, like
101 or something crazy.
Like just a ludicrous number of variant covers. And they sold over 1 million copies.
What?
Of Star Wars #1.
Oh my god.
Okay. Now, are some of these going to be warming racks at stores? Maybe, but it was sold out at a lot of stores too, because they got the Star Wars fanatics. Like, if you've ever been to a convention and you see like the 301st Legion or whatever, all these dudes that dress up like stormtroopers and all these kind of things, a lot of comic shops, they were having Star Wars events on the day of, and you got all these Star Wars fans, and somehow finally, and I always wondered, and maybe it's just because Star Wars fandom is so much of a bigger thing than a lot of the other fandoms. I mean, like, you got Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and there's some fandom there, or Doctor Who, or, even Star Trek. But all those things, I think they all are, they're like this. And Star Wars fandom is this.
Yes,
right?
Definitely.
And they got a direct line into that Star Wars fandom. And these people are like going berserk for this Star Wars series. Now, I got the first issue in my box and I read it, and it was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
It's the classic. It's set between the fourth and fifth movies, right?
Good.
And it's got Luke and Han and Leia and Chewie and Darth Vader, and they look like Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher,
nice.
And they got John Cassaday doing the art, and they got Jason Aaron writing it. It's like they got the top line, people doing it. The likenesses are very good, and it's like it's the characters that not some crazy alternate 20 million years ago Jedis that you never seen before,
or some expanded universe no name. Yeah.
It's the core stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sold the hell out of this book. And you got the Star Wars fandom, they're going in and they're buying, I'm going to buy the blank cover, I'm going to buy this cover. They probably were selling easily 3, 4, 5 copies a person to these fans. You got people who were just even casual fans that would hear about it and pick it up, and it's like, oh, this is exactly like the movie. It's not something different, and it's just like you're reading a continuation. This is a smart way of doing it. Then when I talked to the guy at the shop, I asked him a couple of questions. I first asked him, so when you were selling this, were you selling it to mostly the people who normally come in the shop, or did you see a lot of new people coming in the shop? And he told me there were a lot of new people coming into the shop for this.
Wow.
And buying the Star Wars comic. Now, the next question that immediately comes to my mind, because I've watched comic sales over the years, I'm not an expert like John. I probably know more than like the average character in the street about this. And I know about how sales drop between issue 1 and issue 2.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when issue 1 is really jacked, variant covers and all this business. Well, pre-orders for the second issue were already over 300,000.
Holy shit.
And when I talked to the guy at the shop, he told me that, they gave us an extra incentive discount if we ordered more, at least as many of issue number 2 as we did of the regular cover of issue number 1.
Ah.
So, it's like, hey, let's throw them an extra 5% disc, whatever the hell it was. I didn't pry for details into the guy's business in that way, but at least, it's like, okay, so now comic shops are being incentivized to not do the normal thing, which is, I'm going to buy issue number 1. Now issue number 2, I'm going to buy 50% of what I bought for issue number 1.
Right.
40%. Now they're incentivized to buy the same number, but not crazy, because they don't have all the variants. So, okay, let's, at least buy as many of number 2 as you bought of the regular cover of number 1. So, now what? They're selling like 300,000 copies.
Wow, that's amazing.
And maybe they'll sell more, but the important thing is that it's a very well done package, and if it was like just kind of slapped together and tossed out and been just a grab, I can see people buying that first issue and saying, I'm not going to bother to come back.
Right.
I read the first issue and it was damn good. I only ordered the first issue. I didn't pre-order 3 issues, of this comic, because I've been burned so many times, where it's like, I pre-ordered, all these issues, and then I read the first one and I'm like, ugh, then I got a bunch of other issues coming. So I tend to now, unless I'm really into something, I'm going to order the first. Well, I'm going to go back and buy the second. I think a lot of other people are going to do that too, because it was just really well done, and it was just the classic characters that most people who are reading this comic. I know there have been some comics from Dark Horse and other places that, have had Luke and Leia and Han and these characters, but not Marvel. And that's the other.
I'm
it's
wondering
just
if the store owners are going to use this opportunity to really. I mean, you've got this extra foot traffic coming in. They're coming in for a specific item. Are these guys going to be savvy enough to be able to flip these people to other books? Yeah, because I'd hate to see, because I've seen this before. Especially working in a shop. There's a hot book. People come in for it. When the book is done, or if there's a change in the writer or artist, the sales drop and the people disappear, as opposed to getting somebody in the door and then just selling them on comics in general, not just a particular title.
You're going to ease them in, because here's what's happening. You got Star Wars. Next, in February, is coming out Darth Vader. Again, with top-notch talent on it, and then comes in Princess Leia, that's drawn by Harry and Rachel Dodson, who do just fabulous, kind of good girl kind of art, and it's all like classic Leia, classic Vader, and then so by the time these series, all 3 of them come out and they're still running, now you're getting people into the shops because they loved Star Wars. They're going to come back for Star Wars number 2. Darth Vader is going to be there. Oh, damn, I'm Darth Vader. I love Darth Vader. And they're going to buy Darth Vader. And they're going to come back for Darth Vader number 2 and Star Wars number 3. And Princess Leia is going to be sitting there. It's like, I got to get Princess Leia. Now, the trick is going to come. The 4th one is like some, the last Padawan, who's some character that I've never heard of before. And, it's like, I'm not that interested in that one. But while I'm not interested in that, maybe the hardcore Star Wars guys would be. But by the time we get there, Secret Wars is going to be on stand. There we come back around. Right. So now you have made an infusion into comic shops. You're dragging in these people to buy Star Wars, to buy Darth Vader, to buy Princess Leia, and they're in the shop. And now you're going to hit them with Secret Wars with Alex Ross covers on them, and all kinds of crazy business going on.
They're going to want to see it just because
now
of the promotion.
They can, it's just the way these dominoes are falling. It's almost like they planned it. And I'll give them the credit that I think that they did. It's just like I see Star Wars leading into Secret Wars from the standpoint of pulling people into the comic shop and just kind of teeing them up to give Secret Wars, and then coming out of Secret Wars of like, hey, you haven't been reading Marvel ever or for the last 40 years, or you just watched the movies? Hey, here's a whole bunch of new Marvel comics that you don't need to have read anything other than Secret Wars that you just read. Nice. And have seen the movies. And hey, let's see how that works for them. It seems like it has a fairly decent chance of being a smash success for them. And on the plus side of this is, with that Star Wars fan base who already have that kind of pop culture kind of slant to them, if you can get even a fragment of those people to cross over into the Marvel Universe titles, I mean, you can say the same thing about, people who watch Arrow or watch Gotham or The Flash on TV. There are millions and millions of people watch those TV shows, right? If 10%, if 1% of the people who watch those TV shows bought a comic book, you would increase the sales on most of these DC books by 25 to 50%.
Yep. And just think about it. Once you get them hooked, you can reel them in with the events. Just like you said, you open the door with Star Wars. You get a bunch of people in. Now they're curious. They're hearing about Secret Wars. Well, what's this all about? Now they're into that. While that's going on, maybe there's a bit of a lull. But no, because during that lull, bam, a big Marvel movie is out. Now they want to go see that. Now that brings them back into the shops. Now it's all starting to make sense, and their universe is becoming more and more complete as the day goes on. I like it.
And, where the smart comic shop owner is going to come into play is, now that they've got these people coming into the shops, are they going to, and I fear that this is what's going to happen, because much like criminals are a cowardly and superstitious lot, a lot of comic shop owners are a lazy, shiftless lot. Sorry, comic shop owners, but I've been in too many comic shops in my
and they know who they are.
There are some really great comic shop owners that do great, innovative things, and I think that is maybe, being generous, 25% of the comic shop owners. A lot of the other ones are content to just sit back and sell popular Marvel and DC comics.
Literally.
Now,
you not even get up out of the chair.
Yeah. Don't even bother to say hello and greet someone when they walk into their shop. And can I help you? Can I, what do you like? Can I point you at some things? They're not salesmen. They are order takers at the cash register. Right. They will ring you up.
Kid. Put that down.
Yeah, So the savvy comic shop owner who will grow their business is the comic shop owner, in my opinion, who is going to take this influx that Marvel is magnanimously building for them, and they're going to leverage it to sell those people on the DC reboot also that comes out of Convergence, and they're going to say, well, what other kind of movies do you like? Did you like Kill Bill? Did you like, whatever, and start pointing them at some indie comic books.
Yes.
Because, superhero comics are great, but at any point, it's just like a diet of only superhero comics is going to get old. When you read superhero comics for
40 years,
5 years, 10 years at the outside, and you see the same things happening over and over and over again, and it doesn't mean that there aren't entertaining stories told in there,
Right.
But if that's all you're reading, it just, I see it happen so many times that I'm on these boards and it's like, I'm just sick of it. I'm done with comics. I'm done. You know, when they're doing this same thing over and over. Oh, they've done this so many times. You know what? It's like, you shouldn't be done with comics. You should be done with the comics that do that and go try to read some of these other things, because there's a lot of really great comic books out, you know, the art form of comics. There's a lot of great stuff out there that can be read. And, you know, we both love the superheroes, but I can't exist on I can't exist on a steady diet of only the superhero books.
Right.
You know, I got to read these other comics to keep myself sane. You know, if I'm just reading the superhero books, and too many of them, that's what I have to be careful with Marvel on this, because Marvel is going to have a whole bunch of cool stuff coming out of Secret Wars. I can't read too much of it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have to pick what are the 15 or 20, and that's a lot to some people. For me, that's like a fragment of what I read. Mm-hmm. But I can't read 50 Marvel comics, because I guarantee you, no matter how good they are,
you're not going to retain any of it.
I'm not even retaining, but there is going to, it's just, if you read 50 Marvel comic books, it's just going to be, oh God, it's the same thing. That's what burned me out on DC, because the new 52 came along, and John Mayo and I, we read all 52 of them. Mm-hmm. First 3 months, I read all 52 of the new 52. And it's just like, the same thing is happening in this book as in this book, and the same, and it was too much for me. Now, some people, they can dig on that, and it won't burn them out. For me personally, I just burned out on DC, because I had too much of it. So the thing is for me, I've got to pick a good set of them, but not too many.
Right.
You know, and then make sure that I mix in, you know, make sure that I'm reading all these different other kinds of books in and amongst those books. Because I'm looking at it and it's like, I'm liking Spider-Verse, but at a certain point, it's like it's going on for 2 or 3 months, but, you know, on a long-term sustainable basis, I don't know if I want to be reading 7 Spider-Man comics every month. I mean, because they spit out 2 Spider-Man books, $20.99, Spider-Gwen and Silk and Spider-Woman. Wow. So that's 6. You know, so 6 Spider-Man books, something's got to give there. Mm-hmm. You know, and usually for me, the first thing I do is I cut out the .1, because that's usually just an extraneous comic. Right. I'm probably going to cut Spider-Man 2099, because even though I like it, it's in a separate continuity that I don't really need. You know, I mean, when it was tied into the crossover, okay. But on an ongoing basis, I probably don't need it. I probably will end up with Spider-Man, Spider-Gwen, maybe Spider-Woman, and 3 going forward. And that's more than enough of that. But then, you know, you got Black Widow, and you got Ms. Marvel and Daredevil, and, you know, but each of these are different within the superhero-ish kind of world. But some of those, they get too similar. Like, to me, X-Men books, they all kind of blur together, but people who are real
yes, they do.
That's not a bad thing. I mean, I don't mean to impugn the X-Men books, because the people who really dig the X-Men, there's those guys, and they read all the X-Men books, and that's almost like its own self-contained area of the Marvel universe. There's got to be like 15, 20 books just over in, let me see. I got to look it up now, because it's just, the X-Men area of the Marvel universe is an amazing creature in and of itself. I mean, they're crossing it over in the solicits now with Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, let's see.
I was just
Avengers
overwhelmed by New Mutants.
There's a swarm of Spider-Man books, a whole bunch of Guardians of the Galaxy. Since the movie's popular, they're doing a whole bunch of Guardians of the Galaxy books. They're doing all kinds. They're stuffing Guardians of the Galaxy and all kinds of crossovers too. Because it'll sell comics. Okay, so you got Cyclops, and I'm not even going to count the Guardians and X-Men crossover.
What do you mean Cyclops? Cyclops is his own book now?
It's up to issue 12.
He's the most boring character in the X-Men. Slim Summers has his own book?
They've done something to make people want to buy it for 12
Holy
issues.
Cow.
John Layman is writing it. He's a good writer.
All right.
I don't read it, but I hear people like it. I mean,
it's Scott
okay,
Summers.
That was up at the top because it was tied in with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Let's see. Okay, so now we're down here. Okay, so you had Cyclops. You got Uncanny X-Men.
Okay.
You got 2 issues of All New X-Men. Okay. Magneto. Amazing X-Men.
What the hell is that?
Return of the Living Deadpool.
Okay.
You've got Wolverines, which is all different kind of Wolverine. You got the Wolverines team, which I think is X-23 and Saber.
All right.
There are 4 issues of that coming out. So that brings us up to 11. You got another Deadpool. You got Storm. You got X-Men without an adjective. So that is 14 X-Men books that are coming out in April. I mean, that's a lot of $4 a pop. You know, it's like, Deadpool number 250 is $10.
Wow.
Okay. Deadpool's kind of his own thing. I mean, there are people who like Deadpool that don't necessarily like, but if you take the 2 Deadpool out, you got 12 X-Men books. And Avengers, of course, there's a ton of Avengers books coming out.
Now, is that something fairly recent? Because, I mean,
since the movies, Avengers.
Okay, yeah.
Because they've had Avengers and New Avengers coming out, but this month solicits, which are books shipping in April. You got Avengers World number 19 and 20. I don't read that. Uncanny Avengers, which is essentially an X-Men book. You got, New Avengers and Avengers, so that brings us up to 5. You got New Avengers, Ultron Forever, Avengers Ultron Forever. You got 4 issues of Avengers Millennium, so that brings us up to 11.
Wow.
You got Secret Avengers, that's 12. An Avengers Operation Hydra, that's 13.
But no Great Lakes.
They're strip mining the Avengers too. So right there, you got Avengers and X-Men, and that's like 27 comic books.
Oh my god.
And that's not counting, then you go into the Spider-Man corner of the universe, and it's just, you kind of step back, and it's like, okay, wait. Now, this is kind of a crossover. You got Spider-Man and the X-Men, numbers 5 and 6. Now, this comic is an interesting one in that when Wolverine died, or I guess he knew he was dying or something, so he sent some note to Peter Parker and asked him to go, because Wolverine had been a teacher at the Jean Grey School, which is kind of an alternate to Xavier's Academy. And he asked Spider-Man to go up there and be a teacher and kind of ferret out. He thought there was some mole in the school who was like spying for the bad guys. So that's the intro into that one. But you got Spider-Man and the X-Men. So I guess if you add that onto the X-Men franchise, it kicks it up to 16 books. But so anyway, you got Spider-Man and the X-Men. You got 2 books there. Let's count it as a Spider-Man book because it starts with Spider-Man. You got Miles Morales, the Ultimate Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Last issue, because they're going to, until they reboot it in the 616 or whatever comes out of Secret Wars. Amazing Spider-Man 17 and 17.1. We're up to 5. Spider-Man 2099, Silk, Spider-Woman, Spider-Gwen. 9 books in the Spider-Man corner of the universe. So we had 27 and another 9. You now have 36 books if you take X-Men, Avengers, and Spider-Man.
Now here's the problem. Here's the problem. If I'm working in a comic shop, if I'm running a comic shop, I see a mom come in with her 3 boys, and she tells me, oh, my kids like Spider-Man, and they like the movie stuff. You know, you've got to get a hold of this woman and guide her to where she wants to go, because if she hits the racks, she's just going to run out of there screaming.
Yeah.
Because she's going to ask little Timmy which Spider-Man he wants. He doesn't know, because he likes the Spider-Man that he sees on the cartoon or the Spider-Man that he sees in the movie. And there's 20 million Spider-Mans on that shelf.
Yeah. Wow.
So
now we got the Guardians. So you got Legendary Star-Lord, you got Guardians of the Galaxy and the X-Men, Rocket Raccoon, Guardians of the Galaxy, Guardians 3000, Guardians of the Galaxy Best Story Ever one-shot, Guardians Team Up.
Oh, good God.
That's 7 Guardians of the Galaxy books. 6, now we're to 43, and we're only in the top 4.
Wow.
And it's like right there, 36 comics, $4 a pop. Some of them are more than $4, right? That is $150. Just Marvel, just X-Men, Avengers, Spider-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Wow.
It's just like, I can understand how someone could be overwhelmed by this stuff. It's like, oh my God, you know, I don't get anywhere near all of these. I mean, I'm getting like 20 Marvel books, which is a lot of Marvel books.
Yeah, that's a good
and
amount.
It is half of the total of just those top 4 franchises. And that's because I don't buy anything from the X-Men franchise.
Mm-hmm.
The Avengers franchise, I just get Avengers and New Avengers. In Spider-Man, I'm getting most of the books. And in Guardians, I pretty much just get Guardians of the Galaxy.
So those are the worst offenders? There's no other franchise that's really...
Nothing that comes close to that. Now, they do have the cartoon all-ages version. So they got Marvel Universe, Spider-Man, Web Warriors, Marvel Universe, Avengers Assemble Season 2, and Marvel Universe Guardians of the Galaxy, which is, there's a new Guardians cartoon they've come out with, of course.
Huh.
Yep. And these are adaptations of the Red Hot animated, things.
Gotcha.
But, most of the other things you got, just 1 or 2, you got Thor, Shield is back. You got a couple issues of Daredevil, all new Hawkeye, a couple issues of the Hulk, 2 issues of Superior. Then they get you with the double shipping too. Angela, Asgard's assassin, which I guess you can count maybe into the Thor universe, kind of, sort of. Deathlock, Ant-Man, Punisher, Black Widow in America, Moon Knight. Oh, you got Loki, Agent of Asgard, which sort of goes with the Thor. So that puts us into 3 Thor books. You got Moon Knight. You got Captain America and the Mighty Avengers. So that sort of goes in. You got Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. That kind of pulls in with Cap. No, it's just, there's a lot of things out there. So, is Marvel going to, what are they going to do? They're not going to, they might say they're going to kill the Marvel Universe. They're going to kill the Marvel Universe the same way that they killed Wolverine.
Right.
Which is they're not. It's just, they're going to use it. They're going to do some cool stuff. They're going to reboot some things. They're going to change some things up, but they've changed things up every year or two for as long as I've been reading comics, and the same as you. So, I think it's a good thing. That they'll have some good characters coming out of it. They'll have some new creators. We'll see. I mean, it's a good time to be a comics fan, but really, it's a matter of finding what comics you're going to like to read the most. Because most people, there are some super fans, which I do not count myself in.
Really?
I'm talking about superhero super fans.
Okay.
Like Don Mayo and Mike Myers and these guys who read
every single
80-90% of all the superhero books. It's just, I can't do it. I can't read that many superhero books. And most people can't. Either they can't afford it, they don't want to, it's just like some combination of these factors. So, I mean, given that there are something like 70, 75 Marvel books coming out, pick it's like, boy, pick a large number. If you want to read 10, that's a lot of Marvel comics to read. You want to read 15? 15 is $60 at full cover price. You got to pick. You got to pick and choose. You can't read it all. So you pick the ones, and for me, it's a choice between, do you want to totally immerse yourself in one corner of the universe and read everything in that corner, or do you want to read a bunch of different things? For me, I would rather, instead of getting 15 Avengers books, I'll get Avengers and New Avengers, and then Daredevil and Thor and She-Hulk and Ms. Marvel and Spider-Man, and just get the top selling or my favorite book from a bunch of different parts, and that way I kind of get a slice, kind of a horizontal slice across the Marvel universe. Right. Instead of just saying, I'm going to just get a big piece of pie that like cuts down straight into one piece of the universe, which, if someone who's like a hardcore X-Men fan, for instance, that's what they're going to do. They're just going to get every X-Men book.
Right. And nothing else. Yeah.
And they don't get anything else, or maybe they'll get, a couple of other things. But, I like going like that. Let me take across the universe. And since I kind of pulled away from DC, I'm hoping that out of Convergence, I'll be able to pick some slice of DC books that I can get back into if they're kind of starting. Because I had already started doing that a little bit because I was liking Gotham Academy, and they just rebooted Batgirl, like 2 months ago.
I know.
They just started, and now they're going to reboot everything again. Hopefully, they'll leave Batgirl the way she was, because a lot of people are really digging this version of Batgirl. But just kind of picking a slice across the DC books too, and then going in and picking different books from different companies. I can look, that's different people. Here's another interesting thing I'll leave you with. Disney's coming back to comics.
Are they?
With Uncle Scrooge, Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, Walt Disney's Comics and Stories. From IDW.
Huh.
So, funny, because Boom had
the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away.
That's right. What's really amusing to me is that Boom had the license, Disney bought Marvel, Disney non-renewed Boom, I think they had the thought that they were going to put out Disney comics through Marvel. But I don't think Marvel has the market penetration to the fans that read Disney comics.
Right.
Hardcore Marvel fans will cross over like this. Star Wars comics, no people who are reading superhero comics, most of them like Star Wars. Right? And they'll read a Star Wars comic. Those people, are they going to pick up, for the most part, making a generalization, are they going to pick up Uncle Scrooge? No way.
Nope.
No way. IDW, on the other hand, is doing a great job of selling My Little Pony comics and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics and Transformers comics and G.I. Joe comics and Angry Birds comics and all kinds of that kind of stuff. So putting the Disney, classic Disney comics at IDW makes a whole lot of sense, and I think IDW will sell them better than Marvel would have.
Wow.
Because what Marvel's got going for it is there are people who will buy a comic book because Marvel is putting it out.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because Dark Horse has been putting out Marvel books for 15 years. And these Star Wars fans, like, Marvel puts out a Star Wars book, and it's like people go berserk for these Star Wars comics like there was never a Star Wars comic before. Like, oh my God, there's Star Wars comics. It's because...
one thing I liked was the marketing, because they made it sound like, you know, Star Wars has finally come home to the company that brought it to you in the first place, way back when your dad was reading them. You know,
that's right.
Never mind all the you know, Dark Horse putting him out. We've got it back now, and we know what we're doing.
And guess what? They're going to sell reprints of all those Dark Horse comics.
I love it.
Because they have the rights to them. Dark Horse actually reprinted the Marvel Star Wars comics when they had the Star Wars license. Just like Dark Horse, when they now have the Conan license. So they're spitting out reprints of Savage Sword of Conan and the Marvel Color Conan comic. Because whoever has the license to do the reprints. Now that Disney has Star Wars back at Marvel, that whole backlist of of Star Wars books that Dark Horse did for 15 years, people are going to read them, and it's like, oh, look at these great comics, you know, that Marvel's putting out. You know?
God.
I gotta leave you with what do I have to leave you with? Something that is my big comic get this last week.
Oh, look at that! Oh, I love it. I gotta
get the glare off of it. There we go.
Look at that. That is beautiful. Beautiful.
I don't know which half of the camera.
That's good right there.
The split screen. So I finally got it. This completes my Captain America run.
Oh, really?
With Marvel.
Nice.
And I am only missing one issue of Avengers now. I'm missing number 2.
Number 2. And a lot of people don't realize number 2 issues are usually harder to find.
This was it'll be cheaper than that one.
I would imagine.
Number 4, it's pretty much more expensive than number 1. You know, because of Captain America. I mean, it's this cover. Where have we seen this cover before? Well, one of the places is the cover of the Passion book, and like every place else, you know, it's just that's a big one for me.
That's good. I'm very, very happy for you. That's a great book.
I am now down to something like 36 Marvel Silver Age comics.
How's your Ant-Man collection coming?
I just bought 44.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't gotten it in the mail yet. So I don't really count it till it's in my hands because something could go awry.
No,
but
come on.
Other than
US
that,
Postal Service?
Number 27. I'm only missing one once I get the 44 in my hands.
Nice. Very nice.
But that number 27 is expensive. over $1,000 for even a beat one.
Wow.
So because of the movie, I kind of missed my opportunity, although I'm just kind of keeping an eye out if I see one that someone sells. Like, for instance, I've been watching for that number 44 for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, there were totally thrashed ones that I was seeing going for, $300-$400 because it's the first Wasp.
Right.
And this one came on a buy it now. And it looks, again, crossing my fingers because I looked at the pictures of it and it looked about like this.
Mm-hmm.
Fairly sharp and solid, but it's like, very good minus or so. Was $200 shipped.
That's not bad.
Which is not bad comparatively. I mean, hey, I put it in the context of I can guarantee you there are people out there who spent $200 on variant covers of Star Wars #1 last week.
Yeah. That's I
spent $200 on Tales to Astonish number 44.
It's all about context.
So check out Comic Spectrum. The April solicits are largely up on the web now since last week. You'll find it. You click on the little cover of the previews catalog on the homepage, and it'll bring you to links. All the main publishers are up, and I've got a handful of the back half of previews publishers. They usually go up a little after the main guys, but you've got Dark Horse, DC, Marvel, IDW, Image, and Marvel up. You've got Archie and Aspen and Valiant and maybe another couple. But, the Dynamite and Boom and those still have to go up, but a lot of them have gone up. Oh, here's a good one. I got to bring one more thing up. Archie versus Predator.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's listed it.
I'm actually looking forward to that.
That's coming out from Dark Horse.
Yeah.
And they promise that somebody's going to get skinned by a predator. So I don't know if we're going to see
Mr. Svensson,
hanging janitor off a tree, just all skinned, or is it going to be Mr. Weatherby or
Big Ethel?
We're going to see Betty and Veronica slathering mud all over each other so they can remain invisible to the predator's heat vision.
That'll be great.
I got to get that. It's a 4-ish series, I think, but Archie versus Predator. Yeah,
that's
who'd
beautiful.
have thought?
That's beautiful. Yeah. Cool.
That's a must buy.
All right, buddy.
Okay.
I will talk to you soon.
Okay. See ya.
Bye.